Now we move on to the second point here. And this is something very important. Today you find this being debated in colleges, universities, debated by atheists. And this fundamental point is that beliefs give value to our actions. Without a solid belief, my actions, as good as they may appear to be, do they really have much value or not? Let's say an atheist who does not believe in God, but they do good acts. They could be philanthropists, they contribute to charitable projects. What about their actions? Do their actions have any value or not? For us to understand this fundamental point, we have to ask ourselves, what is it that gives value to any action? And one important question that we ask here is that who determines what's good and what's bad? We're saying that this person offered a good deed, right? Who says this is a good deed? Okay, you could say the fitrah. The original uncontaminated fitrah, yes, points you to what is right and what's wrong. But can you solely depend on your fitrah? No. Because our environment, our upbringing changes our fitrah. Hence you have a hadith from the Holy Prophet ﷺ in which he says every newborn baby is born on the fitrah, but their society or their parents can corrupt that or change that. So we can't really depend on our fitrah. You see, there are two primary sources that guide us to what is good and bad. One is what you mentioned, the fitrah or the conscience. Right? We have our conscience, our human nature, our instincts, our conscience. The conscience plays an important role in showing you what is right and what is wrong. There's no doubt about that. But is it enough? No, it's not enough. And the biggest proof is look at the world. Look at what people do. Many people will commit acts of injustice, corruption, wrongdoings, and really they don't find any problem with it. Those Arabs, for example, who used to bury their female infants alive, you think their conscience prevented them? Not really. In fact, they considered that a good thing. Because they considered, some of them, by the way, not all the Arabs, some tribes, they considered a female to be a source of shame, a source of negativity. It's like a curse. So in fact, by doing that, by killing her alive, then their conscience would be relieved. It can go the other way around. So you can't really depend on your conscience. What about society? Some people will tell you it's your society. Whatever society says is right, it's right. Whatever it says it's wrong, it's wrong. Can you depend on your society? For values, for moral principles? No. Why? Because society is not fixed. It changes. Every few decades we see our society changes. It develops new attitudes. How can you trust your society when it's constantly changing? During the time of the Arabs, for example, a lot of the corruption that they would do, it was sanctioned by their society. Like these tribes who would kill their, female infants alive, that was sanctioned by their society. Their society considered that something good and moral. Here in the United States, decades ago, homosexuality was seen as a disease, right? Up until the early 1970s, psychologists and doctors would even classify it as a psychological disorder. It was frowned upon. It was a taboo. Now what are you seeing in society? It's changing. It's being accepted. So 100 years ago, 50 years ago, it was a bad thing. Today, all of a sudden, it's becoming a good thing, right? How can you trust your society? So was my society correct 100 years ago, or today, or 50 years from now when it's going to change? The moral principles, these core values, they should be fixed. If they're not fixed, they really don't have much value to them. When something is fixed, it's valuable. You can depend on it. You can trust it. Look at currency as an example, the dollar for example. If the dollar was not stable, such that today you could buy a car with $20,000, but tomorrow you could not buy a pencil with $20,000. Would this currency have any value? No. One of the factors that give currency its value is the stability of that currency, right? That you can depend on it, that you could wake up in the morning, knowing that $10,000 has an estimated worth of this much. You can depend on it, that gives its value. But if something is constantly fluctuating and changing, it really does not have much value. So to go back to our point, those who have no faith in God, and they allow their own conscience or their society to define for them what is good and what is bad, they don't have a firm foundation. And therefore, their actions, even though they're good actions, they don't have much value to them. Because they're not based on a fixed foundation. And hence you find the Quran in some verses in speaking about, those who don't believe in God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Furqan that on the day of judgment they will come with their actions. Allah will cause their actions to blow with the wind. It's an Arabic expression to mean that their actions will not have much value. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not give any credit to their actions because it was not based on a firm foundation. When you come to religion, however, and this is the significance of religion, this is why we need religion. When you come to religion, religion doesn't tell you, to do good and to stay away from bad just because society dictates to you or just because, your conscience tells you this. No, but because there are fixed rights. Religion is based on rights. A true Muslim is the one who observes these rights. I don't commit acts of injustice against others, not because my society frowns upon me when I do that, but because others have rights on me. My family has rights on me. The environment has rights on me. My Creator has rights on me. Islam is based on a system of rights. And these rights guarantee to a better degree that a human being will practice them. Because when you now know that you have rights, these rights are fixed. They don't change. The religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not change. The core beliefs do not change. When you know that there are rights that you have to observe, this is the benefit of religion. Religion gives us a system of rights that are fixed, that we can depend on, that we can trust. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants for us as human beings. So we see that religion plays a very important role in our lives. Now, some of you may be wondering that, okay, when we examine religion, we see that, and atheists often, bring this objection. They'll tell you if religion is so good as you describe and as you claim, then why do we see that historically the source of all problems in the world is religion? All the wars, the bloodshed, the problems that we have, they all go back to religion. Now, very briefly, a response to that. First of all, that's not true. They make it appear so by taking advantage of the current political climate in the world to fool people to think that religion is the source of all problems in history. That's not the case. If you look at the historical wars and problems, in fact, the majority of them had nothing to do with religion. The wars that were committed in history, not in the name of religion, were far more fierce and cruel than those wars that were committed in the name of religion. Look at, for example, atheistic regimes like communism. How many millions of people died because of communism? What did that have to do with religion? Historically, look at the wars and the battles. World War II was a war that claimed 50 to 70 million lives, and it had nothing to do with religion. Yes, Hitler was supposedly a Christian, but what he did was not in the name of Christianity or in the name of religion. He had a political agenda. And this war had nothing to do with Islam or any other religion. So this is one of those misconceptions that are being perpetuated in our society, that religion is the source of all problems. That's not the case. Number two, which religion? When we talk about these religions, because religion has power, because it's a reality, people take advantage of it. Once I heard one of the scholars, in giving an example, he would say, have you ever heard that anyone counterfeits a $200 bill? Have you ever heard that or seen that? Or has anybody been arrested for doing that? Why not? Because it doesn't exist, right? What do you counterfeit? Something that's real, that it exists. You produce a fake copy of it for interest, right? One reason you see religion is constantly being abused and misused throughout history is because of this fundamental point, that religion is reality. It has power. Otherwise, why are so many groups, parties, regimes, governments trying to take advantage of it? Because it's reality. You're not going to go and counterfeit something that doesn't exist, something that's already fake. It's just like money. It's just like power. People misuse money. They abuse money, right? Does that mean money is inherently bad? No. Is there anything human beings have not abused in history? Name me one thing human beings have not abused. One thing. And religion is no exception. Just like humanity has literally abused everything, every dimension in their life. From their social relations, from their natural resources, from their position, from their power, from their money. Human beings abuse everything. That's human nature. The soul, as the Quran tells us, we have several types of, nafs, selves or souls. We have a nafs al-ammara, the evil inciting soul. And this brings us to abuse everything that we have. So religion is no exception. Just like everything else is abused, religion is also abused. This does not mean that religion is inherently bad. In fact, when you examine the contributions of religion, most of the achievements we have throughout history go back to religion. The true religions of God. And at the forefront is the religion of Islam. It has offered countless contributions to humanity. Once I was reading an article about the Quran that Thomas Jefferson had. As he was, writing the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, he had his own copy. You can access it today. Keith Ellison, when he was sworn in, he used that very copy. Now, of course, some people didn't like it because he did not use the Bible, but he used the very copy that was owned by Thomas Jefferson. And when you read about his life and why he used the Holy Quran has many amazing points. Gandhi would read the Quran when he was imprisoned, and he benefited from a number of moral and ideological concepts in the Quran for his mission, for his non-violent mission. Religion has so many contributions. Several years ago, there was a study conducted at George Washington University. What they did was that they took some moral commands in the Holy Quran, some principles, some values that the Quran mentions and commands us to implement. And they saw which countries in the world are the most who implement the Quran. The results were shocking. Up until like 32, there was no single Muslim nation. Number 1, Ireland. Number 2, Australia. New Zealand. Denmark. UK. Canada. They are implementing the Holy Quran, especially in their economic system, more than any Muslim nation. And that's why they're advanced. These are the teachings of the Quran. The problem is we've abandoned these teachings for political and various other reasons, and that's why we're backwards. This study at George Washington University realized that these countries, when you gauge them and you evaluate them according to the Quran, they're not Muslim by name, but they're implementing the core concepts of the Quran more than Muslim nations. And many of them historically have benefited from the teachings of the Holy Quran, from the teachings of the Holy Prophet, from Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Many sciences today, if you trace their origin and their acceleration, they go back to individuals like Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, and the other Imams of Ahl al-Bayt. So religion has offered so many contributions to humanity. And it's wrong for anyone to think that the source of our problems is religion. The source of our problem is politics, number one, and secondly, lack of religion, not religion. If religion would have been implemented, we wouldn't see the world in its current state. So, the most important aspect in our life, the most important dimension, is the core beliefs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to believe in, to embrace, and to live by.